Welcome to the Lost Vet podcast, where we are helping you to get back to your passion and purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Melodie Chan, and in today's episode of Destination People, I have Dr. Alycia Chrenek joining me in the studio, who is one of our advisors on the Lost Vet program. And today we talk about teams and what it really means to be a team, and also some of the things and qualities that make up good team members. Have a listen. And we're back, and I have Alycia with me again today, which is always a good day.
Hello, and thank you.
Hey. One of the things that we've been talking about that we thought we'd share with our listeners is this whole idea of teams and the concept of teams, and maybe more specifically, when things get really tough, what does it mean to be a team? And so I'll turn that thought over to you, Alycia, to maybe expand on that nugget.
Yes, to flush out. So this concept of teams is something that I've been reflecting on a lot in the last few weeks. Well, and before that, obviously, as well. And I think a key part of that is a team is more than just the reporting structure or the organizational chart. Um, it is about who you trust and who you rely on when you're struggling and who relies on you when they're struggling. And it's that equal opportunity. And this is something that the military and the Navy SEALs do very well, and they have perfected this idea of teams. And when we look at if any are familiar, they go through a testing week, and they call it Hell Week because they push them physically and mentally to the limit. And I think there's a lot of comparison for us in the veterinary field, because there are times where you are pushed to your max, and you can have the best schedule in the world, but there are emergency situations that come on. Somebody gets sick, you need to help out. There's all these things where you find that when people talk about grit, you find what's there and underneath. And this idea that we can do it all on our own isn't reasonable. You need a team, and there are times when you're not going to be at your best and somebody is going to be there and help you through this, or where you can be that person. And I think that's equally rewarding. I've been on both sides of that, where I've reached out a hand and said, hey, I can help you with this, or perhaps we want to look at this, and help them. But I've also had that help in return. And one of the very early in my career, I think it was maybe could have been in my first week, definitely in my first month, I get a horse in who's very sick, and I am overwhelmed with the possibilities that what could happen here. And my technician, I love her dearly, she walks up, she's like, would you like me to take a temperature? And I'm like, yes, please. Because I don't know what I'm doing here, right? Because you get in that moment where you're overstressed and you can't think about it. And so she just, with that little comment, just helped me do my physical exam.
Right.
Of course, I don't know by looking at the color of the coat what's going on. I need to get past this step. But it was such a polite and friendly way of helping me. She didn't go into the back and be like, oh, that young vet doesn't know what she's doing, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, she's been there for 20 years. She's just going to help this. She's seen a few young vets come and go. And so that's a very simple example, but it is where we're here for a common goal. And when we look at the Navy SEALs, they say the top 3 on the list are trust and loyalty. So that's that psychological safety that if I'm down, that person next to me isn't going to berate me for it. They're going to help me to the next step.
Yeah.
And my best friends will also tell me hard things that I need to hear. So I can trust them when they're telling me things that are not necessarily comfortable, but I trust that they will tell me when, Alycia, maybe you didn't handle that right. The other thing is that when we talk about the Navy SEALs, it's a common purpose. I think in veterinary
Yeah.
medicine, our teams are a very common person or purpose. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, we are there to help animals and to help their pet parents to get to a place of health. Discipline and excellence, I think that is another thing that parallels with veterinary medicine, because we are, as a group, very committed. We kind of joke about the type A, but it is with purpose, and it is value there. And then I think the fourth thing that is huge, absolutely huge for teams, is communication. And it does come back to communication every time. That's where, when I was talking about trust, it is communicate. Everything that we do within a team is communication based. Good, bad, comfortable, not. Um, we've recorded another podcast even this series talking about the repair in communication. That
Right.
fits right along with this, and that builds that psychological safety that your team is there. And at a recent conference that I was at presenting, um, there are people in the room who are going to be in a really good spot, and that is like, celebrate that you're doing well, you're feeling comfortable in your role. My question to them is there somebody around you that you can reach out a hand and bring with you to that spot? And for the others in the room that are struggling, it's okay to put out your hand and ask for help as well. And we, in many aspects of our lives, come to this spot where we're very competitive. It's competitive to get into vet school. It's competitive to get the job that you want. We're naturally competitive, which has purpose and has value. It is a very positive strength. There comes a part where you need to have the team. And there is, in vet med particularly, there is room for all of us.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have a labor shortage like we've never had before. We don't need to compete in our offices either. We can really embrace that team, and what's good for me is good for the person and the doctor and the technician standing next to me. And if there was one thing that I had to hold, I guess I can't do one, I have to do two, of how we get
That will
vet
be
med.
allowed. That will be
Yeah.
allowed.
How we get vet med to where we want it to be. Um, and this is something I've talked to you about before. For myself, my son is 4 and my daughter is 6, and going into school, they write down what they want to be when they grow up. Well, my son wants to be a farmer and my daughter wants to be a veterinarian. And these are two areas of the industry which I love, and I think it's awesome that they have found the same love that I have. But they have matching depression rates. They have
Yes.
matching suicide ideation rates, right? So, in as they're saying this, I'm writing this on their little board to make a picture. I'm like, how do we make this where we need it to be? And I figure for myself, this is why I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing the presentations that I'm doing, is I figure I have about 15 years before I have to have the conversation with my kids of, is this what you really want? And if it is, I will back up and say that I love this career. I love the farming agriculture background. I love veterinary medicine. It's been very good to me, and I enjoy it. And I would love to see them do it, but it can get better.
Yeah.
So if I was going to pick two things of how we take vet med and move it forward so it is sustainable, it would be that we work on our communication skills and we build teams, because I think that will solve a lot of the fallout that's happening, is if we can build those two things.
Yeah. As you're speaking through that, and I mean, these are all such important principles to really embody and to live by. And I think about just a clinic team, and like, as you mentioned, there's the vet. We always think of the vet, but you think of the veterinarian, and on that team, that veterinarian needs to have a technician, a vet assistant, a front end person, a
Yeah.
practice manager, somebody, the kennel or stall person who's helping out, the client relations people, depending on that whole space. And I think where teams function really well too is if everybody has a really clearly defined role and they understand what their role is in relation to, as you said, that common goal.
Yes.
And then you've got everybody clear on expectations, and then they can really function together. Because again, I really struggle with hierarchy, that feeling of hierarchy in a
Yes. Yeah.
clinic. Because I mean, honestly, if you're really going to look at it, as a veterinarian, you can't do what you need to do for your hospital patients if the kennels or stalls aren't being cleaned, like,
Yeah.
and again, it's all these little pieces. Or you don't have your technician or technicians, is oftentimes the case, as your
Yeah.
right, left hand, and your leg and your arm,
Yeah.
sometimes depending on what's happening. And again, just really thinking about reflecting on everybody who's around you to support you in those situations. And again, as you said, it's if you're feeling good, you know making putting in that little extra effort to extend that. I think the harder piece is the asking for help.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because because there may also be, there's a bit of that denial, right, of no, I'm fine. There's a few things that can happen. Because I'm just reflecting, even for me, I've been in those situations where I think, oh, maybe I'm just having a bad day. Like, it's fine. I'll just push through it. Or that comparison to another person's suffering or grief. And you're thinking, oh, I know I'm having a bad time, but so and so has it way worse than me. So I shouldn't be feeling this way.
Right.
And you suppress it. Or there's just the, if you've been raised this way, or this is your conditioning of just suck it up, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is part of what makes you strong, this is part of what got you here, is you were able to push through the
Yes.
hard things.
Yeah.
And so asking for help, um and I've lived this myself, and I've had to learn the hard way as well. The emotions come out somehow, your feelings come out
Yes.
somehow. And usually, if you haven't been managing them, dealing with them, doing something with them, they come out in the way wrong way.
Yes. Yeah.
But then
That
also,
cup will overflow
oh, the
at
cup will
some point, and then you
overflow,
have
but
no choice.
also it manifests in physical ways. And I think,
Yes.
again, and these are things where you also can be in denial about this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why, I'm really having an issue with stomach ulcers, or I don't know why I'm dealing with my hair falling out, or I'm getting these
Sleep.
rashes. Like, sleep,
Yeah.
and then the sleep compounds itself. So it's it's a fascinating thing how much we can deny that it's happening. um any thoughts from your end on, if someone who's listening is maybe not used to asking for help, and maybe even this conversation that you and I are having is spurring just questions, how can they even start to think about extending their hand out a little bit?
Yeah. And this is such a lovely topic, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that in the past, and more so in the last month. Um, and so we started this conversation out how team is more than just the organizational chart. It's more than just uh, the reporting structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's who is there, and who do you have that psychological safety with. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, yeah, I would love to, but who, or what would that look like? Then is there somebody in your circle that you would like to have that psychological safety with? Maybe you
Mm.
don't yet. And
Okay.
um, I've had people in my past that we talked and we were friendly, but we
Yeah.
didn't talk. Like we
Yeah.
didn't get into it and have the discussion. Um, and so reach out to them. And you don't have to say like I want you can if you're comfortable with that, you can say, I
Yeah.
want you to be part of my team. Let's start this. I need help.
Yeah.
Or you can start reaching out, phone them every now and again, go for coffee. I know we're busy, but carve out that time. It is essential to start to connect with them and have that vulnerability to enter into the discussion point that is maybe uncomfortable. And admitting if you show your vulnerability first, if they are a person that's worthy of being on your team, they will match it. If they don't,
Yeah.
you always learn something about them. And maybe that's not the person that needs to be in your corner, but there's somebody else. Um, because when I've done that in the past, then it's been really well received. Right. And I've
Yeah.
even reached out and said to some people that I've phoned one in particular from the US team. And I literally said, I want you to be my mentor. Can we start this? They're
Yeah.
like, okay. And it's okay to have just that open, honest conversation as an adult to an adult. Um, or it could be somebody close. And that's why in the last couple weeks, it's been more top of mind because I've wondered if I had reached out to when I was in practice, there's a couple of individuals that were there that, like I said, we were friendly and we talked, but we didn't talk.
Yeah.
If I had reached out knowing that we were going through the same struggles, because likely you are going
Yeah.
through the same thing,
Yeah.
um, what if I had started those conversations and they'd gone just a little bit deeper? Certainly my experience would have been different and likely theirs would have too, and that together we could have found a path forward that was more productive for both of us. um, and you don't always change the outcome, right?
Yeah.
It's still going to be a hard day, there's still stresses there, but when you have a team with you, all of a sudden it's not such a burden to bear on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why teams are just so valuable. And
Yeah.
the other thing that stuck top of mind for me is you're actually the one that introduced servant leadership as a term to me. That's why everybody in that group that you mentioned, from the kennels to the technician to the office manager to the person answering the phone at the front, they all have leadership in their area, and we need to empower them to do that, and that brings teams forward.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up a good point too. We can think of that teams as being who's in your immediate surrounding, like your physical team. But I think you bring up a good point of building that team around you of people who may be going through similar experiences, not necessarily in the same business, same clinic, same
Yeah.
geography, but just I think it's so powerful knowing that you're not alone. And I
Hmm.
think that's part of this Lost Vet program is
Yes.
realizing when you start opening up and talking to people, and again, it's that vulnerability of just saying, hey, I'm having a really hard time with this, fill in the
Yeah.
blank. Is that normal? Is that something that
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you're feeling too, and how that opens up the conversation
Yeah.
of, oh wow, okay, well, I thought
Yeah.
I was the only one that was going through that, and just being curious, I guess, in
Yeah.
a way, and just asking the questions, and it doesn't make you less than. it
No.
it is just a reality. it's
Yeah.
it's it's the toughness and the hardness of life. um i don't I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to go over your limit, because you won't know what your limit is
Yeah.
until you've touched it. I think what's really important about that situation is recognizing, okay, this is now too much. You
Yes.
may have been managing it quote unquote fine up until that point, but I think having the self-reflection to realize, okay, nope, that now we've gone too far, and being able to pause and take a step back, I
Yeah.
think is important. And then having the people in your corner to help you.
Yeah, definitely. And when you've been stretched to that limit and you find that spot, the value there is, one, you know you can do it and you've made it through because history shows you've done this and you've made it through that. Um, but also, rather than getting to a 10 where you're stretched out,
Right.
maybe you can recognize at a 6, oh,
Yeah.
I know what's coming in the next 4 steps.
Yeah.
I need to correct this today and now and find a
Hmm.
different path so I don't end up to that spot again.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely.
Yeah. I think the other thought that went through my head as we're talking about supporting other people, another lesson that I've learned along my journey is, I absolutely, want to be there and support people. I did, though, have to learn how to care and not carry. That's one
Yes.
phrase you and I use a lot,
Yes.
because I think in a way, there was a certain pride, if
Hmm.
you will, of knowing, oh, so and so really trusts me and they are really sharing things that are hard, but realizing, a, it's not your role to fix things,
Yep.
but also, B, and I think in a more serious way, is understanding that you are not their therapist. And
Yes.
that, I think, was also a very important, um, boundary for me to draw and understand. And more so than, especially if you're a manager or a leader of a team,
Yes.
um, in realizing, this sounds really difficult, and it sounds actually really complex, and probably would be best if you spoke with a professional who could help you with these
Yes.
situations. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. And I'd
Yes.
also say that depending on who you're speaking to, it may be completely brushed off the first, second, third, fourth time you
Yes.
say it. But I think there's value in holding that line, repeating it, because I think for some people too, who going to therapy again is not part of their culture, it's not part of what's
Yeah.
accepted, normalizing it, because that was
Yeah.
also a big thing for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
is, in my upbringing, you did not talk about if you were
Right.
mentally
Yeah.
mentally
Yeah.
not well,
That was
or
for
really
crazy
struggling.
people. Right?
Exactly.
And you're not crazy.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I,
yeah.
I think just that was one of my big learnings from my team members that I had joined later in my career, who were much younger than me and who completely normalized this whole discussion of
Yes.
therapy, and realizing, again, you're kind of, it's two things. It's, we get coaches, we get trained as veterinarians to understand what to do, we
Yeah.
get trained as technicians to understand what to do, but we don't invest in sort of what this course is, the Lost Vet podcast and the program
Yeah.
of helping to train the peopling side and the
Yeah. The
communication side.
communication.
But then
Definitely.
that self work of just working through yourself and your situations, that's why you have a therapist as well, a professional
Yes.
to help you work through
Yeah.
these situations that are hard. Life is hard, and it ebbs and flows. Those
Yeah.
moments, like you said, where you're feeling really good and everything's firing, um there's a counterpoint to that, and that's what makes the
Yeah.
good times good.
Except it is natural to have ups and downs, and they do help with perspective. And it's okay to take some of those down moments, and reflect on them, because that's where a lot of growth comes from. Uh, it's just, don't set up camp there.
Mhm.
Don't stay there too long,
Mhm.
because then it becomes too familiar. And going back to the getting help and therapy, you would take lessons to learn how to swim or to learn how to ski. Therapy is like lessons on how to navigate a very complicated world that we're living in. And they have tips and tricks that you have these aha moments. You're like, whoa, what just happened there?
Yeah.
And I'll touch on one other thing because I think we could expand on each one of those topics. Um, that you mentioned about boundaries. We very easily think of boundaries as tangible. I can't go tonight at 5 o'clock, or I'm not available for that. There is a psychological boundary of how much of this conversation or how much of this scenario is for you to own. And you have to create those boundaries. You care but not carry is really, I think, summarizes that psychological boundary,
Mm-hmm.
because you can only take so much responsibility for that situation. You can help them to the next step, you can help them find resources, but at the end of the day, their decisions are theirs to own. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's a whole other discussion because that falls into so many aspects of a veterinary medicine life
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
deal with a lot of people, but also a lot of really tough situations for these people when maybe it's a loss of their pet or something else that's happening, even financial restraints that affect how they're able to treat them. So,
Yeah. There's a lot in just that idea of a team, because
yes.
again, it's a collection of people,
Yeah.
um and then just again understanding your roles in there, understanding each individual's what they can and cannot do, what they will and will not do.
Yeah.
But then in the same respect, you're all in it together, and
Yes.
to keep that top of mind. And it's not about who gets to the end of the day first and gets to
Right.
go home first.
Yeah.
It's about how did we get there together,
Yes.
and how can we help get
And how
everyone
is that
through.
journey?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, and some days are just gonna be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some days aren't. And I think again that ebb and flow, I really liked your comment of don't set up camp there.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it and move on, and you know go create those bonds so you can
Yes.
have fun
Yes.
when it's
Exactly.
warranted.
Yeah. So I'll read because we were talking about teams today. I'll just read a few points here as we leave of what Brene Brown says makes teams. So cultivate trust and vulnerability, foster psychological safety, promote empathy and connection, encourage accountability, celebrate wins and learn from failures, focus on your strengths, and check in regularly. And I think
I,
we've hit most of those points through this conversation.
I think so. And that last one just rings so true. It's the check in regularly. Um, if there's one thing that I would encourage our listeners to do after they listen to this pod, if there's that one person where you've been like, oh, I've been meaning to get in touch, but it's so
Yeah.
busy, just send them a note. Send
Yeah.
send them a voice memo, send them a text, scare them and just phone them out of the blue.
Yeah.
But those check-ins, you would be surprised. It doesn't take long, and it just creates such lasting bonds
It
as you're
does,
moving through life.
definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you. As always, I
Yeah,
appreciate our
thank you.
conversations. Until next
Me
time.
too.
I feel like we covered a lot of ground today in this conversation in talking about teams. And again, a team is really more than just the organizational chart or what is written down on that piece of paper of whose name is where. To both of us, being a great team is having that psychological safety and trust around you, with the people around you, and knowing that you will be there for them and they will be there for you. Four of the things that Alycia brought up that really make up the foundations of a team. 1, trust and loyalty. 2, having a common purpose. 3, discipline and excellence. And 4, communication. That communication piece always comes back. It's so pivotal to everything that we do, not just in the animal health and veterinary industry, but in life in general. And thinking about how we can continue to improve ourselves in that skill of communication, because it's not something that you can tick the box. It's a continual learning process and learning how to improve. I really appreciated the direction our discussion went to in thinking about, if you are there to support others, what that can look like, and making sure there are psychological boundaries for you as well. Because again, you want to know that you can be there if somebody wants or needs your help. You want them to know that you will be there 100% to support them and provide them help to the extent that you are able to and should do. So we did talk about the importance of care, not carry. It is not on you to own or take over someone else's problems or to fix them. And also realizing and understanding how professional help in encouraging somebody to seek out a therapist is something that you absolutely can offer and be supportive of and repeat if it's not something that is part of that person's regular or acceptable norm in what they feel like they need. In the same respect, if you are somebody that is feeling like you are feeling alone, you're feeling overwhelmed, you feel like no one understands you, take a deep breath and please reach out and ask for help in the smallest way. It's rare that somebody will ever turn you away if you just ask for somebody's help. If you were on the other side and somebody asked you for help, I would think if you reflected, you would probably do what you could to help that other person. So please don't feel like it's not something that you can't do or shouldn't do. Make that effort to just reach out. And if you're okay to, in the meantime, you've got energy to, this is where cultivating relationships outside of work, inside of work, just making sure that you have people on your team, around you, in your personal life, that can support you when things get tough, that you have people to help lift you up and you have someone to share this experience we called life with. Thanks for listening. Until next time.